Hey, Major Croy, Harry Carey here. It's time to do a gait analysis of our subject, Lieutenant RD1. He's going to be walking in shoes and non-shoes, but don't worry, he's not walk very fast for you. But here we go. We'll start off with heel strike.
Okay, the first phase that we're going to be looking at is initial contact. So you can see that when the subject is walking with shoes on, you can see it has a pretty distinct heel strike. And in this image, you can see that heel strike with the ankle in a relatively neutral position. From the posterior view, you can see that he's landing on the outer portion of his calcaneus. And in this image here, we measured that, and it looks to be about 170 degrees or 5 degrees of calcaneal inversion. Next, we're going to be looking at when he's walking barefoot. And here you can see that he appears to supinate his foot just before initial contact, which means that he's landing on the lateral aspect of his foot, right around the head of his fifth metatarsal. And coming up here is going to be a good image of the foot position when he's making that initial contact. So here you can see the outer portion of his forefoot landing on the ground. And again, from a posterior view, you can see the calcaneal inversion in this image coming up. And it's definitely more than when he was walking in shoes. And we have a measurement here of approximately 160 degrees or 20 degrees of calcaneal inversion.
And now for the loading response. As Lieutenant Scott mentioned, in initial contact, the subject strikes more flat-footed when he is barefoot, but has a defined heel strike when he is wearing his running shoes. Barefooted, his calcaneus reaches to the ground with an inversion angle of 16 degrees. During loading, he pronates to 12 degrees of calcaneal eversion. During his loading gait, he has 34 degrees of a foot progression angle. Here's the video clip again. So in his running shoes, you can see that the subject heel strikes and his calcaneus does not start as inverted, but he still pronates to 12 degrees of eversion. His foot progression angle decreases to 15 degrees.
In midstance, we can see that the subject has some very slight flexion in both his knee and hip, both shod and barefoot, which are very similar. And he has, we can see the increased calcaneal eversion in barefoot walking is slightly more than with shod. And we can also see that in barefoot walking, he has slightly more external rotation, and so more of a too many toes sign than in his shod.
All right, here we are looking at terminal stance. Terminal stance begins here when the weight of the subject comes directly over the stance foot. So here you can see it in both different views. Terminal stance ends just before the contralateral foot strikes the ground. And again, you can see it here in the two different planes. Here are the key phases of terminal stance. So as the subject progresses in this phase, the hip extends and moves into a position of 10 to 20 degrees of hip extension. The knee drives into full extension, and the ankle initially starts in dorsiflexion but then transitions into plantar flexion. And in this subject, here's what we're looking at. The subject is towards the end of the terminal stance phase, and they're sitting in a pronated position. During normal gaits, subjects will move from a pronated position to supinated position, but as you see here, the subject is unable to do so. Towards the end of terminal stance for this subject, he is sitting in a total degree of 10 degrees of pronation on the right in shoe, and on the left outside of the shoe, he is measured at 7 degrees.
During Preswing, subject RD1 varies in his amount of ankle plantar flexion. Under the barefoot condition, he plantar flexes to 33 degrees, which is approximately 13 degrees greater than the normal observed plantar flexion during this phase. However, in the shod condition, the subject plantar flexes approximately 45% of his barefoot plantar flexion measurement, achieving only 15 degrees of plantar flexion. Looking from posterior to anterior in the frontal plane, during barefoot walking, subject RD1 exhibits approximately 2 degrees of calcaneal eversion in pre-swing. In the shod condition, he exhibits approximately 11 degrees of calcaneal inversion, suggesting that he undergoes less pronation while in the shod condition. In initial swing, subject RD1 has a similar gait both with and without shoes when observing in the sagittal plane. The angle of his ankle is approximately 118 degrees walking barefoot and 117 degrees while walking in shoes. Both of these measurements are slightly greater than the normal observed range for this phase. From the posterior view, subject RD1 exhibits approximately 8 degrees of calcaneal inversion in the barefoot condition as compared to being rear foot neutral in the shod condition. These measurements suggest that the subject continues to pronate after pre-swing in the barefoot condition. Similarly, he pronates in the shod condition, reducing his calcaneal inversion from 11 degrees of calcaneal inversion to rear foot neutral.
As the subject continues into mid-swing, he maintains a similar degree of calcaneal eversion as he did in pre-swing, with this being slightly more dramatic in the barefoot condition. From the lateral view, his ankle appears to be at about 17 degrees of plantar flexion in both conditions, which is close enough to neutral to allow his foot to comfortably clear the ground during this phase.
As the subject finishes off his gait cycle with terminal swing, you can notice Major Croy in the upper right corner, judging. With running shoes on, the subject's foot progression angle falls within a more normal range, while in barefoot swing, his too many toes sign is more obvious. Additionally, while barefoot, the subject takes shorter steps than while shod. Since he is taking shorter steps, he does not have to reach as far with his foot, and so barefoot, his degree of dorsiflexion is less than while wearing shoes.
Well, that does it for our analysis. Thanks for watching, and thanks to Rancho Los Domingos for giving us some tips on how to divide it up. Major Croy, hope you enjoyed. See you again next time. Cubs win! Cubs win!